Now, before we push on with the Allied turn, I just need to recycle back because we've forgotten to deal with the Italians when it was the Axis turn. Why do we keep forgetting the Italians? Going to play an important part. So, the Italians, even though they're not at war, do still get the chance to construct units. They have a BRP, basic resource points, of 75. They can spend half of those in any one turn, so that's 38 points. And with those 38 points, I constructed a fleet, a number of infantry units, and an armour unit. Those were all built within Italy, after which the Italians got, just as the Germans did, a strategic redeployment phase. The Italians are able to redeploy 5 units during the strategic redeployment phase. Ground units can only move a sort of unlimited distance within ground areas that they control, and they can also move them across one sea area, with one unit moved, one ground unit or air unit moved for each fleet available to embark from. As you can see, within Italy, the Italians have 4 fleets, which allows them to move 4 units by sea transport. They can't be intercepted by the British Navy or the Allied Navy. And so what I did with those 4 is I moved an armour unit over and a number of infantry units. So I used the full 4 quota. I've moved this kind of slightly weak infantry unit, a couple of infantry units, and a couple of armour units. I think it was a couple of armour units as well, or one. But anyway, 4 pieces have moved across. So that is the Italians redeployed. Now, why do I want to do that? Well, obviously, one, because there are BPs on offer in North Africa. Though none of the countries individually provide many BRPs. Tunisia, I mean, all of them, Algeria, Morocco, Egypt, only offer 5. But that begins to add up. And while the Italians are, be keen to get hold of those, the other thing it does is it forces the Allies to defend those areas, because they don't want to be losing them. Because once lost, I think that's a permanent loss. And as a result, it's going to mean that the Allies, when it comes to their turn, are going to have to move units away from the Western Front to the Mediterranean. And of course, the Germans are going to be very happy about that, because any pieces the British have to move to defend their interests down in the Mediterranean are units that can't be allocated to France and the lowlands to protect against the forthcoming German push. Now, nothing to say the British do have to come and defend Egypt. Maybe they go, well, it's more important that we defend France and we lose North Africa. But I'm not sure that's a very sensible approach. So the strategic redeployment by the Italians has created a bit of a strategic conundrum for the British and the Allies. And we'll see as we now move into their turn what they decide to do in response. As a coda to what I've just said, while individually the countries don't provide many BRPs, the Suez Canal, which down here is vital for British interests. And if the Suez Canal and Alexandria, which here, if those are lost, then and lost at the same time to the Axis, well, that is 25 BRPs lost for the British immediately. So quite clearly, the game cleverly I think, imposes that requirement on Britain, particularly, to defend the Mediterranean, and can't simply go, oh well, look, there's not a lot on offer there. We'll leave it be, and just focus on preventing um, Germany from conquering France. So that's pretty cool. So it gives a little bit more context as to the decisions the Allies are going to make. Okay, so let's broaden the view again and decide or see what the Allies are going to do. Well, I think the Mediterranean threat requires swift response, but there is currently no option for an offensive action because we haven't got units in a position to attack. Well, I suppose in theory we could go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 and launch an attack against Libya, but we'd get beaten. I think we'd be doing it at unfavourable odds. So I mean, I don't think there's any point in doing that. Attrition, you can only, I mean, we could call it an attrition option now, and there would be a little not actually roll on the attrition table, or we could just call it a pass and just focus on construction and redeployment. So I think that's probably what we'll do. I don't think there's any benefit in calling it an attrition phase in the Mediterranean. In the Western front, I think, although we're on the border here, I think because the attack is into the Western front and we have here, I think we can call it an attrition. Sorry, no, this is the Mediterranean. So I'm sorry, France, we could call it an attrition. Well, we may as well then. We'll call an attrition. There's a slight chance of destroying something there, and we'll call an attrition on the Western front. Again, there's a slight chance of causing a unit to fall there. So if we just focus in for the time being, we begin with, if we choose to, movement of fleets. So do we wish to move any British fleets or any Allied fleets? Well, I don't think so. At the moment, what we have is there are 2 British fleets in Britain itself. So when we come to the strategic redeployment phase, that means 2 units can be moved across this sea, the sort of the seas that are part of the Western theatre, and they can continue to move once they reach Gibraltar, because what you notice in Gibraltar is we have 2 British fleets there. So in effect, the strategic deployment can go in steps. So from 2 units to Gibraltar and 2 units from Gibraltar can then go into North Africa. But that's obviously slow. The Italians, with their 4 fleets, were able to get quite a lot over more quickly. So there's a challenge for the British. But the point being, we don't want to move our fleets because the fleets... Oh, I beg your pardon. We have a fleet up here in Scotland. The British have a fleet up in Scotland, which is just off camera. So in fact, I could get 3 units, leave 1 in Gibraltar, but we're still only going to be able to phase 2 move from Gibraltar 2 units. So I'm going to leave the fleets where they are. In terms of movement of air and ground units, well, I think what I want to do is head my ground units 1, 2, 3, 4 across the Mediterranean, across North Africa. So I've just moved this across here. It's got 5 movement points. We're not going to cross the border because that would mean a declaration of war. And I think I would just move this air unit up from Cairo into Alexandria. Just provides a bit more cover. 1, 2, 3, 4. Doesn't quite cover into Jerusalem, but I'm less worried by that for the time being. So I've just rebased that air unit just from Cairo up into Alexandria. I shall leave Malta because Malta is a fortified base that we can base both ships and fleets and air force from. So I want to keep that protected, though that might be a useful target for the Axis. Then within Britain itself, I think I probably want to get everything. Let's just move everything onto the coast. Actually, I'm just always going to leave something, a land unit in Britain. We don't want in London. Don't want that to fall. I think that's okay. Everything seems all right there. So I don't think I need much movement there. In France, keep a peace in Paris. I just don't want some sort of strange breakthrough happening that causes me trouble. I'm all right with this line. I've got a bit of a defense here. Marseille is protected, sort of. So I'm all right with that. So I think the movement phase is fine. We then come to the combat attrition, and there's going to be no attrition combat in the Mediterranean. The only attrition is going to happen here. We can't attrition here because we're not at war against Italy, no declaration of war. But we just have this one unit that is kind of attritioning up against, it's the only unit in contact, and it's a 2 strength. So I'm going to roll 1 dice on the 1 to 10 column on the attrition resolution table. 4, that's going to do nothing. So that attrition combat is over. And now I'm going to come, having done the combat, there's not going to be any exploitation, obviously nothing like that, to the unit construction. So the British construction, we're going to go all in on Navy. The Royal Navy is going to be, let's just bring this up now, bolstered further. I'm going to build at some expense. Britain gets 63 BRPs. I'm going to spend it 2 fleets. I'm going to do it while we have, you know, who knows whether the economic situation is going to worsen and these expensive units can't get built later. So I'm building 2 fleets there. That's going to mean greater capacity for sea transport and 1 piece of armour. The French, meanwhile, are able to build everything that's in their force pool. That's 4 infantry, 4 infantry units, a couple of armour, and then a couple of replacement units. So I think what we're going to do is kind of just double up this line here, make it as difficult for the Germans as we can. I don't know if I'm placing these in a particularly logical way. See, what I might do is just shift that up there, have a piece of armour down here. Observing the stacking limits. These replacement pieces, I tell you what, I quite like having them just here. Just provides a bit of a soak here, and we'll put a second one in Paris. So that spend is well within their spending limit. So now let's quickly think about some strategic redeployment. I think the French are not going to. I mean, I could redeploy 1 unit from their navy in Marseille into North Africa. I don't think I'm going to, though. I think defending France is probably more important. But the British definitely are. Now, the limit, although we've got 5 fleets up here, I am going to... oh, it's a good point. I need to just double check whether there's a limit on the number of fleets I can have in Gibraltar. So, as part of that strategic redeployment, I am going to move... I think it's probably too gamey to say that I can strategically redeploy 1 fleet to Gibraltar and then for it to act as a sea transport fleet for a 3rd unit through Gibraltar to North Africa. So I'm going to move 2 of my units using 2 fleets in Britain. So I'm going to move 1 armour and 1 infantry. So effectively we move them using 2 of the fleets to Gibraltar. There are 2 fleets in Gibraltar, so they can continue moving through here. As long as they don't move adjacent to a enemy unit, we're fine. And they end up in just off camera. Let me just move the camera. And we're going to bring them in to a port in North Africa. So we're going to bring them into Alexandria. In fact, we'll bring them both into Alexandria. So I'm within my 2 ground stacking units. I've got a fleet and an air piece in Alexandria. So that's Britain has 9 strategic redeployment capacity. So I've used 2 of them there. For a 3rd one, I'm going to redeploy 1 of my fleets. I'll redeploy the one from Liverpool to Gibraltar so that in future turns 3 units can chain through Gibraltar. But I don't think it would have been right to move that one there within strategic redeployment and then use it to strategically redeploy 3 ground units. If I've read that rule wrong, got that rule wrong, well, so be it. In due course, I'm going to, I think, want to get a fleet also in Malta. So actually, there's nothing. Gibraltar, any port can host up to 4 fleets. So I think, actually, do I need... Well, there's no point bringing a 4th one down. And I don't think I can strategically redeploy fleets beyond the 1C. In fact, I can move through Gibraltar. I can strategically redeploy a fleet through Malta. So I am going to take one of my 4 fleets still in Britain and strategically redeploy it to Malta. So we're okay there. So I've strengthened Britain's presence in the Mediterranean. I've got a couple of ground units there. I think with that, the strategic redeployment phase, I think everything is still in supply. Though I just need to double check supplying these British units in the Mediterranean. Yeah, just check the rules there. The Egyptian ports, Alexandria, Port Said, act as unlimited supply sources for the British in terms of supplying ground units, so long as the British maintain control of Gibraltar. If the British lose Gibraltar, then things get decidedly tough and only 4 units can be sustained by the Egyptian ports. So for the time being, there are no supply issues for the British. All units are in supply. And having carried out that check, the end of the Allied turn is reached, and we have moved out of August 1939 into winter 1939 and the end of our first turn.